Ghana's economy expanding, fastest pace in more than 2 years. The industrial sector did have a pretty good performance. GDP 4.7% in the first 3 months through March from a year earlier. It was 3.8% in the prior quarter. Let's get to our guests and talk about the economy of Ghana with Mr. Winston Tackie, who of course is a business broadcast journalist. He's joining us from, I believe it's Accra. Winston, good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. What were the, as far as the economy, the first quarter performance is concerned, key drivers for Ghana?
This is a very interesting development considering how the economy has been, especially in 2023. Ghana's economy had been under stringent challenges, especially we going to the IMF to seek bailout. But what we've seen this recent growth record is very promising, looks very promising for the country. Recording 4.7% in the first quarter of 2024 is very, very interesting. And also the key drivers for this growth can be attributed to the industry sector, basically mining and quarrying, and also oil and gas. And this has recorded a tune of 12.9% increase, also pushed by the mining, which is basically 3.0%, and construction 2.2%. And this development has consistently been attributed to the consistent investment, especially in the oil and gas sector, which has contributed enormously to the overall growth of 1.8% in terms of industry.
And yeah, the mining sector in Ghana has, I think it was, what, $4.3 billion or so in exports for 2023. So pretty impressive. Now, cocoa, there's been a whole story around cocoa, massive appreciation. I don't know if you can help us out. It was, supply shortages. I think it climbed up to what, 11,000. It's fallen back now. Now, what about the contraction that we've seen in cocoa that has impacted Ghana's revenues? What's happening in that space?
The agricultural sector, based on these recent figures released by the Ghana Statistical Service, actually expanded by 1.1% in the first quarter of 2024, that compared to 1.3% in the fourth quarter of 2023. The cocoa sector, which is a subsector of the agri sector, declined by 0.2 percentage points. Meanwhile, as of today, which is Wednesday, Ghana, which is the second largest cocoa producer, is looking to delay its up to 350,000 tons of beans to next season, which has directly started sending signals to across the world. We've seen price of cocoa beans going high, skyrocketing. This, for some time, has become a huge headache for chocolate manufacturers worldwide. Already, Côte d'Ivoire have also started putting in place some policies to make sure that they can meet the global demand. Domestically, from the Ghana Cocoa Board, there's been information from the director that the challenges such as weather, such as diseases, such as smuggling, has become a very daunting tax on the total target that has been estimated for next season. But with all these challenges, still the sector hasn't seen much growth. There's been calls by the farmers to increase their farm gate price, but as of now, there has been suspicions that in some of the borders, country board, there's been suspected cases of smuggling where some foreigners buy directly at farm gate prices. So this has, in a way, encouraged more smuggling, creating a form of cartel within the system, thereby hiking the prices on the international market.
I see. I mean, is the government doing anything to address this smuggling situation, perhaps beefing up security? How do you think this is going to be addressed?
One of the key approach the government intends to use is to increase the sentences for persons arrested smuggling cocoa. So as of now, according by our law is in Ghana, if you are caught smuggling as much as 10 bags of beans, you will be arrested and sentenced to about 5 years in prison. And but there are instances that this will be reviewed to make it higher, more stringent, to ensure that smuggling is is not encouraged in the system. Nonetheless, cocoa being a very formidable crop and cash crop, there are instances of galamsey activities disrupting the overall supply and harvest. We've seen maximum number of farmers giving out their farms to galamsey operators, thereby affecting the deforestation aspect of the places where cocoa are mostly farmed. There are cases where most farmers are also attributing the lack of investment in the sector. Now, some have also moved to have farming rubber instead of cocoa. And this is affecting the state of Ghana, especially being the second largest supplier of cocoa beans worldwide.
As far as the industry sector overtaking services, what I think you mentioned construction. What's behind that? What does it mean for the economy?
It's a very interesting development. We're seeing the industry overtaking the services sector. The services sector has consistently been the key pusher. One aspect is that the industry sector grew by 1.8%, which was driven by mining and quarrying, which contributed the highest to the raw growth prospect of 3.0%. This has been checked and can be attributed to increase in gold export, according to figures from the Statistics Service and also from the Central Bank, which also has enhanced, which was actually enhanced by government's policy of gold for oil policy, which was also intended to help stabilize the depreciating Ghana cedis while building a formidable reserves for the currency, especially in foreign reserves. But consistently, this development is something that has overtaken all of us by surprise. Being the first quarter, many have said that we should wait to see the output in the second and third quarter, whether industry will be able to sustain this development and growth consistently.
Now, this question is always asked, whether, people say you can't eat GDP, but, in terms of the growth we've seen for the average Ghanaian on the street, what does this mean? Does this reflect in any way in their lives?
That's a very, very interesting question. When we talk about GDP, we look at a barometer of economic performance and also how tangible it's directly affect the lives of individuals. While GDP can lead to improved employment opportunities, better living standards, and enhanced public services, its benefit must be inclusive, especially to ensure the population reaps the rewards of every economic progress. Now we've seen the progress of 4.7% being the first quarter growth. The key question we have to ask is which sector? Seeing the industry, now we have to ask ourselves that the industry sector, how many people can be employed in the industry sector compared to the services sector, which usually used to lead the growth rate. So the service sector, we know there are restaurants, there are industries, there are SMEs who in the supply chain are also getting benefits. There are people being moved out of poverty. But if you look at the industry sector, we see a lot of specialization where individuals need to have specialized skills to enter into like engineering, specialization in mining. All those specialization kind of constrict the sector, not making it hugely accessible. But we can see the overall growth being in terms of the output of resources and value, but not necessarily the impact in the improved livelihood of individuals directly.
Well, something that is impacting individuals directly is the depreciating cedi. You've already mentioned that there are steps being put in place from the government, but how do you see the direction of the cedi? I mean, it's half year already. Do you think that it might appreciate going forward, or do we have to secure more funds from the IMF and more inflow has to come in to help the currency? How do you see the cedi working out going forward?
For the last 2 weeks, the cedi has been experiencing marginal depreciation against major global currencies. And following after announcement from the finance ministry about securement, as of now, the finance minister is in the Bahamas, Afrexim Bank making negotiations. There's been also information of him meeting external creditors. All these news and information kind of send a positive signal into the market, indicating that there's huge prospect of inflows hitting the reserves of the central bank, thereby cushioning the cedi for some time. So the beginning of the week, we've seen a marginal appreciation of the cedi based on these expected inflows from the IMF and also from the World Bank, with some support from some bilateral creditors who are saying that looking at the conditions or state of the currency, it is quite necessary for us to expect some injections, not just from this IMF, but also from the World Bank. So all these monies are coming in to bring some marginal stability. The key question is going into the third quarter of the year, also into the fourth quarter. Many are asking whether this year being an election year, many promises and economic activities, what are businesses going to do? Many are expecting to send their monies, expatriate their monies onto their headquarters outside the country. Trade has consistently increased in the first quarter, but if you look at the figures from the statistical service, especially the trade prospects, consistently we see trade improve in the first quarter, but going into the third and fourth quarters, trade has always gone downwards. And this is a key question that has become a headache for the government, and we are trying to see whether when the finance minister comes back from the Bahamas, he will kind of address the media or the nation, especially on the prospect of the stability of the city.
Winston, you keep. This is such a good conversation. I quickly have to ask you that we were covering protests, power shortages in Accra. Has that improved? I mean, you've had power the entire time we've been talking so far. How's the power situation working out?
As of now, one of the very common name that comes in every conversation of is Ghana's connection to the West African gas pipeline from Nigeria. And that has been a key issue, especially the huge debt that has bedeviled the sector. But announcement was made this week, which was sent from the finance ministry, that some amount of about $350 million has been designated from the World Bank to help deal with the energy crisis in the sector. The sector has been bedeviled with debt, and there's been consistent challenges in trying to mitigate this debt. There has been debt to the independent power producers, but for the past 3 weeks, we've seen some marginal stabilities with intermittent power outages. But recent announcement from the power ministry suggests, and also the Public Utility and the Regulatory Authority, including the Electricity Company of Ghana, suggests that from the 1st of July, we are going to receive or experience a 2 weeks consistent power outage. So that is to be expected. And we are hoping that many people who may now fall onto using the generators or find alternative power sources are going to see their costs of energy going high, especially those who are operating cold stores, those who rely. Hotel companies are going to see their cost of buying fuel going high. So all these factors are something that probably will hit hard in the next 2 weeks, especially of July 2024.
Winston Tackie, fantastic conversation. I wanted to add up inflation, but we'll bring you on next time. We'll bring you on next time to talk about inflation in Ghana. Thank you so much for a very informative conversation. Winston Tackie in Accra, business journalist there. Thank you so much for the time. All right.